Hi all, welcome this session. A lot of discussion has going on the concept of colonialism. Historians are different opinion about the concept of colonialism. Basically, colonialism is a form of temporarily extended domination by people over the other people, and as such a part of historical universe of the forms of intergroup dominations such as subjugation, oppression and exploitation. From the medieval period onwards, Asia became the major centers of European colonialism. The demand for spices and the fabulous wealth of the East urged the Europeans to open trade relations with the East. The European traders gradually established their own domination over the field of commercial, political, cultural, etc. During those days, Indian Ocean region was the main center of commercial activities. As we know, the arrival of Portuguese in the Indian Ocean in 1498 revealed the Indian Ocean world to Europe. It broke the insularity of Asian countries and laid the foundation of the establishment of capitalist economy. The Portuguese established the first European nation to develop a trade network in the Indian Ocean through the commercial activities. After that, the European powers such as the Dutch, English, and French entered the maritime trading world to the Indian Ocean. We have already discussed about the different aspects of colonial intervention in Asian countries, so I am not focusing on that area. In this session, I would like to share some important aspects on the impact of colonialism in Asian countries. The fact that the period between 1800 to 1930 was almost all the world become under the control of these Western powers. Now we can analyze what are the main impact of colonial intervention in Asian countries. First, we have to focus on economic impact. One of the main element which is connected with this economic impact was the drain of resources. Colonialism led to a substantial outflow of financial resources. The colonies were held and controlled by the imperialist countries to serve their interest. The natural resources of the colonies, especially the Asian colonies, came under the control of the imperialist countries and were exploited for their own benefits. The main arguments regarding the economic impact of colonialism are the drain of wealth. There was also, we can see, a plunder of economic wealth through the high demand of revenue and taxes. The drain of colonial resources in the form of raw materials, foodstuff, and profits took place during this period. Another significant consequence of colonialism was the establishment of plantation economy. Sugar, tea, sisal, coffee, rubber, tobacco, oil palm were considered as the typical plantation products, the European using by the farmers for their own profit motive. Then another great impact of European colonization was the religious proselytization process. Colonialism provided a great space for Christian missionaries to spread Christianity to overseas colonies. Then the Portuguese, the Spanish, then English, Dutch and French missionaries did attempt to Christianize the indigenous people. As the part of this process, there were started a lot of efforts to interact with the natives. The missionaries provided medical services, schooling, and against the existing social injustice, and they talk about the existing social injustice. Slowly, the people were attracted to Christianity. Basically, the missionaries also promoted the interest of European colonialism. They believed that proselytization became an instrument of the establishment of colonialism in Asian countries. However, the early missionaries made an immense contribution in the spread of education and literary among the natives. In addition with, we can also see the conversion provided a great protection to the lower class from caste oppressions. Educational empowerment was considered another great impact of European colonization in Asian countries. The introduction of Western education in colonies was another strategy by the imperialists to enhancing their hegemony. The Europeans convinced that the domination could not be secured through military power alone. They realized educational empowerment to the natives was the main tactic for their own domination, and they began to pay attention to the education of the natives. Besides the colonial efforts, the missionaries played a key role for the development of education. As a part of this process, they were started a lot of schools in throughout the areas. Most of these colonies, the benefit of education were largely confined to the upper and middle class. The masses were totally neglected in the field of education. The another great important thing of this colonial educational system, they were trying to glorify Western culture. Then the colonialism brought advances in technological changes. Colonial powers introduced technological changes primarily in the field of transport and communication. Large scale of imports of finished products and even more large scale export of bulky raw materials required to cheap and easy system of transport and communication. Colonial governments encouraged the introduction of steam vessels on the rivers and improved the roads, and also they encouraged the finance a large network of railways linking distant regions. Similarly, the modern postal and telegraph system was introduced almost all colonies, which greatly facilitated the business transactions. The construction of roads, railways and telegraph system stimulated trade systems both internal and external. The technological system also benefited in the field of industries and agriculture, and it's destroy the economic and social equilibrium of the society. The another great impact which we can see in the field of cultural milieu. The colonial cultural penetrations was described as a cultural imperialism. One of the main aim of this cultural imperialism is that to controlling the mind of colonial people by impressing upon them the superiority of the culture, ideology and way of life of the imperial powers. The Western imperialist powers endeavored to obstruct the independent cultural development of the colonies. They radically challenged the traditional values and structures of the societies. The Western imperialists made a parallel effort to introduce their culture into the colonies and to demonstrate its superiority. The imperialists tried to establish their hegemony over the colonial people through their cultural conquest and penetration. Protestant and Catholic missionaries assisted their imperial patrons to fulfill the mission of cultural conquest. they not only focused on converted the colonial people into Christianity, but also introduced the European life system to them. Regarding health and life expectancy, colonialism had a mixed impact. On the other hand, medical centers were founded typically with the purpose of lowering infant mortality and advancing diseases prevention and vaccination campaigns. The another great impact we can see in the political field. Colonial influence had a great impact in political field. During those days, most of the countries in Asia had lost their political freedom. The local political institutions were eroded by highly centralized colonial administration. The objective of colonialism were mainly achieved through the effective use of political power for their own hands, especially the colonial state acted both exploitation and oppression. So I would like to conclude the colonialism brought about a radical changes in the colonies. We have already mentioned about the imperialistic countries imposed their political, economic, social and cultural hegemony over the colonies. The colonial ideology created a racial discrimination among the colonies and imperial nations. And moreover, it's a period of new awakening of colonial people which led to their own independent struggles. Thank you very much.